Valerie Jane Maurice Goodall was born on April 3, 1934 in London. Along with her sister Judy, Goodall was reared in London and Bournemouth, England. Goodall's fascination with animal behavior began in early childhood. From an early age, she dreamed of traveling to Africa to observe exotic animals in their natural habitats. Despite the challenges of growing up during World War II, Jane's mother, Van, supported her early curiosity. After graduating from high school and not being able to apply for a scholarship or afford to go to college, Jane moved to London, where she attended secretarial training and worked for a while at Oxford University typing documents. She later worked for a London film company selecting music for documentaries, which only fueled her interest in wildlife and nature beyond European territory. In May 1956, Jane's friend Claude Mange invited her to her family's farm in Kenya. Jane left her job in London, returned home from Bournemouth, and worked as a waitress to save money for the trip. In 5 months, Jane managed to buy a boat ticket to Kenya. In 1957, at the age of 23, Jane traveled to Nairobi, where, through some contacts, she met the anthropologist and paleontologist Louis Leakey, who devoted all his efforts to shedding light on the human lineage. Jane impresses Leakey with her knowledge and he hires her as his assistant. After 1 year of working together, Leakey invites her to Olduvai Gorge, and together with Mary Leakey, they dig for fossils. It was during this time that Jane learned a great deal about the evolution of the human lineage. Lewis let Jane know of his great interest in the study of great African apes, as he was drawn to the unknowns about the behavior of human ancestors, and since behavior is not an element that can be fossilized, he considered the study of the behavior of great apes in their natural habitat as the only alternative way to understand it. So Jane began her knowledge of chimpanzee life. She learned from Lewis that there was a nearby region, Kigoma, where it would be possible to study them in their own habitat. Jane volunteered to conduct this study. Despite not having a university degree or field experience, Lewis considered her the right person for the job. She was a dedicated person and not influenced by the scientific canons of the time. To settle in a camp in the middle of Africa, it was imposed on Jane to go with a chaperone. She embarked on the adventure with her mother, Van. In 1960, they both went to the Gombe Stream Reserve in Tanzania to observe wild chimpanzees. For the next 6 months, Jane undertook the first formal long-term study of chimpanzees living in the wild. But studying the chimpanzees of Gombe was not easy. The animals fled from Jane in fear. She searched the forest every day with patience and determination, deliberately trying not to get too close to the chimpanzees too soon. Her patience paid off when she spotted 2 male chimpanzees, Goliath and David Greybeard. In unscientific contrast to the practices of the time, she named the animals she was observing rather than giving them numbers, and used human-specific language to describe their behaviors, emotions, and personalities. Jane observes meat eating for the first time on October 30th, 1961. She described that chimpanzees have complex social structures, individual personalities, intelligence, and intricate bonds between mothers and their young. She discovered similarities between humans and chimpanzees. She witnessed them making beds or tree nests, hugging and kissing each other, and engaging in internecine war and politics. Jane's breakthrough research came when she witnessed David Greybeard and Goliath making tools to extract termites from their mounds. They would select a thin branch from a tree, strip the leaves, and push the branch into the termite mound. After a few seconds, they would pull out the termite-covered stick and pick off the tasty termites with their lips. This becomes one of Jane's most important discoveries. Until that time, only humans were thought to create tools. On hearing of Jane's observation, Leakey famously says, Now we must redefine man, or accept chimpanzees as humans. Jane's work in Gombe becomes more widely known, and she has to attend a press conference in America. The media produced some rather sensational articles emphasizing her blonde hair and referring to her legs. Some scientists discredited her observations because of this. In 1962, thanks to Louis Leakey, she is accepted at Cambridge University as a PhD candidate, one of very few people to be admitted without a university degree. Some scholars and scientists gave Jane a cold reception and criticized her for giving the chimpanzees names, talk about their personalities, minds, or emotions, as those features were unique to humans. Later on, National Geographic decides to sponsor Jane's work and sends photographer and filmmaker Hugo van Lowick to document Jane's life in Gombe. Jane and Hugo marry in 1964 and they have a son, Grab, but divorce amicably in 1974. In 1965, National Geographic grants funds for the construction of aluminium buildings at Gombe, and with these first permanent structures on the site, the Gombe Stream Research Centre is born. In 1977, Goodall begins shifting her time from science to activism, founding the Jane Goodall Institute dedicated to environmental education, wildlife conservation, and saving declining primate populations from extinction. While the Institute continues the field research that she began 57 years ago, Goodall continues her work today by traveling an average of 300 days per year, speaking in venues around the world about the threats facing chimpanzees, other environmental crises, and her reasons for hope that we will ultimately solve the problems that we have imposed on the earth. Jane continually urges her audiences to recognize their personal power and responsibility to effect positive change through consumer action, lifestyle change, and activism.
Day after day, in the sun and the wind and the rain, I climbed into the hills. This was where I was meant to be.